Hello there and welcome back to the channel, or if this is your first video, hi, welcome, thanks so much for joining me. If you don't know me, my name is Anna, I'm an opera singer and I'm also a trained life coach. This channel is a safe space where we talk all things coaching, all things personal growth and all things mental health, and we also discuss predatory behaviour on social media in the name of coaching. Today is the fourth video in my predatory behaviour series. I've covered business coaching, spiritual coaching and health and wellness coaching already, so today I thought it was only fair that I finally cover life coaches. Now, this one is going to be a little different. We are going to be looking at this kind of predatory behavior from life coaches in the social media space, as always, but today I'm also going to be talking about the case of convicted felon Jodi Hildebrandt, who, if you haven't heard of her, infamously used the title of life coach in order to perpetrate criminal abuse. Her case is definitely an extreme one, and much like when I talked about Belle Gibson, it's really important to note that not everyone is out there perpetrating this kind of criminality in the name of coaching. But it does serve as a really important reminder of how the title of life coach can be abused in order to exercise control and exploit people for personal gain. I'm going to give you some background on the case, but of course this isn't a true crime channel, so I'm not going to get too into the weeds with it, but there's plenty out there on this case already if you'd like to go and find out more. So for today, I've broken it down into two different kinds of predatory life coaches. First, we'll have the Jodi Hildebrandt kind, which I'm going to spend more time on, and influencer life coaches, a far less dangerous brand of predatory life coach, but still harmful one and more prominent in the social media space. I hardly think that I need to give my disclaimer today that I have absolutely nothing against genuine and ethical life coaches. Obviously, as a life coach myself, I fully stand behind coaching, and I think it can be just extraordinarily helpful when it's coming from an ethical source. What I'm against is the predatory tactics used by some in order to manipulate you into following and spending lots of money on them and their services. I'm also, as always, not here to call anyone out, although Jodi Hildebrandt certainly has already done that for herself. My intention is, as always, just to arm you with information so that you can spot the red flags and avoid being manipulated out there. So let's start, as always, by talking about ethical life coaching and what an ethical life coach might typically do. Like I talked about in my very first video, life coaching is not someone telling you how to live your best life. That's insane. No one has perfected the art of living a life to a degree that gives them the authority to do that. The term life coach is really broad, and it is for a reason. The coaching is led by you, as it is in all different kinds of coaching. However, unlike the other niches where there's a fairly specific goal already written into the title of the coaching, e.g. business coaching, health and wellness coaching, in life coaching, it can encompass any and all goals. One session you might want to talk about your health and wellness journey and set some goals there. The next session you might want to talk about relationships, and the next session you might want to talk about your career. You might decide to invest in coaching because you want to work on your overall confidence as a whole, or because you'd like to make some sort of significant change in your life, but you're just feeling a little bit stuck and not sure where to start. In life coaching, we work with the idea that your thoughts create your feelings, which inspire your actions that create your results. So in coaching, you could be working on something as broad as confidence and purpose, or as specific as preparing for a job interview, or setting an action plan towards a health and wellness goal, and all the while working on the inner energy and blocks that crop up along the way. You'll likely do things like values and purpose work, which are at the root of everything we do. Goal setting, what is it that you want to change in your life and what's getting in the way of you making that change, e.g. limiting beliefs, the inner critic, negative voice, perfectionism, all of which I've already covered, and I'll link those. A life coach is not there to sell you lessons on how to do life like them and achieve their success by replicating their lifestyle. They are not there to push their agenda or doctrine on you, and they are not there to be the authority in your life. Now, let's move into talking about Jodi Hildebrandt's case. Because of the nature of her case, this video will be a little heavier than normal. As I said, I'm not going to get too into the details of the criminal convictions that landed her in prison. I'll be looking more so at the red flags that her case offers us on the whole. I do at this point want to offer a small trigger warning that this case does involve severe mistreatment of minors, which I'll only be touching on extremely lightly in passing. However, you can click ahead to the red flags chapter if you'd rather just skip hearing anything about that. Her case is an extreme example, but it offers us critical warning signs, and it highlights how unchecked authority and coercive tactics can destroy lives. Jodi Hildebrandt began as a licensed counselor in Utah and gave relationship counseling to members of the Mormon Church or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. After engaging in misconduct and breaking client confidentiality, her license was suspended, which seems to be when she rebranded as a life coach, which, as we know, is unregulated and doesn't require a license. From there, she continued providing the same problematic counsel, simply rebranded under the new title of life coach. After counseling her and her husband as a couple, Jodi then joined forces with YouTube star Ruby Franke, creator of the extremely popular YouTube channel 8 Passengers, which was a family vlog known for showing Ruby's very strict parenting with her 6 children. The channel 8 Passengers had already started to receive negative attention, with critics claiming mistreatment of minors. The two then started working together at Connections, Jodi Hildebrandt's coaching service that focused on relationships and parenting, and started appearing online together as mums of truth and teaching principles they referred to as truth and distortion. Jodi pushed Ruby's then husband Kevin Franke to move out of the family home and have no contact with his wife or children in order to heal their marriage. Jodi then moved in with Ruby and her children and eventually, ultimately, had Ruby and her 2 youngest children move in with her at her home when her 2 eldest had left the family home and her 2 middle children were sent to a friend and fellow member of Connections. Nobody, including their father, knew where the children were. Both Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke were arrested in August of 2023 when Ruby's 12-year-old son escaped from Hildebrandt's home and ran to a neighbor for help. He showed signs of emaciation, dehydration, and severe physical harm. Ruby's 10-year-old daughter was also found inside the home in a similar condition. Both women pled guilty to 4 counts of aggravated CA and could face decades in prison. Ruby Franke did apologize for her actions and stated in court that she was taken advantage of and essentially brainwashed by Jodi, who did not apologize but stated that she sincerely loves the children and wants only the best for them. Jodi is now petitioning the court for early release. So there's a quick summary of Jodi Hildebrandt and her case. The things she's been convicted of are truly shocking and heinous. As I said, I'm not going to get into any details, but the children's father, who's been reunited with them, is seeing to it that the children get the ongoing therapy they need in order to recover from what happened to them. Hildebrandt's niece has also come forward and spoken publicly about how similar things happened to them at Jodi's hands as a child. Now, we don't need to get too deep into Jodi Hildebrandt's teachings of truth and distortion in order to know that they're problematic. I went and had a look at the still live Instagram of Connections, a very eerie experience, to find out more, and I found them pretty hard to make any sense out of. What I could glean about the principles, though, was that every negative feeling, thought, reaction, experience is labeled as distortion, including trauma, fear, and pain, and that we ourselves are entirely responsible for these negative experiences, and that when we are in such an experience, that we are using tactics of deception in order to deceive ourselves and others and avoid our discomfort and our responsibility. Now, these tactics of deception, as they referred to, were characterized as being pretty evil, devious, deceiving, blame, denial, even compliance were all labeled as tactics of deception and being in distortion. And these were principles that Jodi and Ruby were pushing as parenting strategies, and that parents have a responsibility to teach and enforce these principles with their children in order that they be in truth. In one video, they talk about fighting with your child and that you must go into battle against the evil in the world, and that Connections, their program, is a godsend and will teach you how to see the evil in your child and, quote, call the evil out. Incredibly unnerving and sickening given what we now know. These kinds of principles have nothing to do with counseling and therapy, and they certainly have nothing to do with coaching. Actually, the fact that Jodi Hildebrandt had teachings at all and an agenda that she enforced is our first red flag here. Red flag number 1, agenda and doctrine. An ethical coach should not be enforcing doctrine or have an agenda of any kind other than to support you in what you have said that you want to work on. Not only did Jodi enforce rigid belief systems that suggested that you were in distortion unless you were working with her, she also frequently jumped to diagnose her clients with entirely unrecognized addictions that they needed to heal through more work with her in order to be in truth. Since her arrest, many have come forward with stories about how Jodi diagnosed them with strange and devious addictions, and that this had an incredibly detrimental effect on their mental health as they tried to heal themselves according to the doctrine. Neither a counselor nor a coach should be diagnosing anything, much less addictions that are not even clinically recognized and are based in harmful doctrine. Participants were required to join groups for these addictions, and they were expected to call one another throughout the week and disclose instances where they had been in distortion, something that if they didn't do would result in harsh judgment from Jodi. They were also strongly discouraged from talking about this or anything else with people outside the Connections members because those not in the program would not be in truth. Isolation, our second red flag. Cutting a person off from anyone who could potentially be a critical voice, like family or friends. The purpose of which is to limit clients' exposure to perspectives that could challenge their belief systems, to create dependence on the leader and the group by removing outside relationships so that the group becomes the person's only source of support, and to enhance manipulation and control. People are much more susceptible to psychological manipulation when they're isolated, which makes their behaviour easier to regulate. Ruby Franke's husband was also not the only one to be pushed to leave the family home. Many have now reported having been cut off from their wives and families, particularly when they challenged Jodi or the program. None of this was for free though. These addiction groups, extra sessions with Jodi to heal these so-called addictions, all cost thousands, and were forced upon clients by Jodi, who was threatening grave consequences for them if they didn't come in to truth. Red flag number 3, financial exploitation. A predatory life coach can come up with a new distortion, block, addiction, tactic of deception every day that you need to heal in order to exploit you for more cash. What does being in distortion or truth even really mean? As I said, I had a look at the now very eerie Instagram and didn't get a lot of answers and clarity, which I believe is the point. Distortion is whatever Jodi needs it to mean, and truth is whatever Jodi needs it to mean in order to exploit you, to demonize you, and to be in control. Red flag number 4, control and authority. Every time I do one of these videos, it invariably comes back to 2 things: critical thinking and authority. A life coach should never be exercising one bit of control over you. In the coaching relationship, the authority is always you and never the coach. Jodi Hildebrandt positioned herself as such an authority that she broke up numerous marriages and caused irreparable damage to people's lives. Her authority was to such a degree that a mother was able to perpetrate hideous mistreatment upon her own children because, according to Jodi's doctrine, it was for their best. Now, it's important to say that I do not wish to characterize Ruby Franke as a victim here. Ruby Franke was highly problematic long before she joined forces with Jodi Hildebrandt, which was evident from her now deleted YouTube channel. However, the severity of the mistreatment towards her children definitely took on a life of its own once they were isolated with Jodi Hildebrandt inside her home. Astonishing cruelty by a mother and her life coach towards innocent children, all in the name of coaching truth and distortion. Distorted is for sure. Distorted, deplorable, disgusting, and nothing to do with life coaching. I've often linked predatory coach tactics to cult-like tactics, and in this case we really see it all too clearly. Doctrine, isolation, financial exploitation, and authority. Us versus them, and pushing unquestioned loyalty. Jodi Hildebrandt's case highlights starkly the dangers of unregulated coaching and how unchecked authority can be a breeding ground for manipulation, exploitation, and harm, especially when combined with coercive tactics like isolation and control. Okay, that was a heavy one. Let's shift gears now a little bit and look at another type of predatory life coach, those that are considerably more common in the online space, influencer life coaches. This is the person with a massive following, a public figure, who decides to start offering life coaching due to their online success. These ones are likely untrained and are simply now calling themselves life coaches, offering coaching based on their own personal experiences and success, and are selling the idea that following their journey can lead you to replicating their success. Influencer life coaches can seem pretty harmless, especially in comparison with what we've just been talking about, but they too can be incredibly harmful. Using their huge influence in order to essentially monetize their following without any expertise is highly manipulative. People can leave coaching feeling inadequate, particularly when they're unable to replicate the influencer's success simply due to the unique factors that contribute to an influencer's opportunities, aka influencer privilege. The opportunities and resources available to someone who is an influencer far exceed those available to someone who is not, and their coaching definitely does not take this into account. Influencer life coaches also tend to be the biggest offenders for charging extraordinarily exorbitant prices. Prices people can barely afford, if at all, for what is essentially advice. Advice without credentials, training, or expertise. Exploiting their following through courses, books, exclusive memberships with coveted direct access to the influencer, and that offer no real value and are simply a cash grab. When there are a lack of proper coaching skills, what you're essentially paying for is advice and opinion without the knowledge necessary to provide individualized support. Coaching is not about teaching someone how to be like you, which, frankly, in my opinion, is very narcissistic, but still entices because of our admiration for our favorite influencers and our human tendency to over-compare ourselves to what we see online. True ethical life coaching involves skillful, personalized support that guides you to discover your own solutions according to your values and circumstances and what feels right for you, not what this influencer reckons you should do because it worked for them. To take it a step further, life coaches are actually heavily discouraged from giving any kind of advice because this interrupts your process to make your own decision about what feels right for you. It's not about what I, as the coach, think. When you go ahead and create an action plan based on what the coach, or anybody for that matter, thinks, your head and your heart won't ever be really fully behind it because it's based on someone else's opinion, and that rarely leads to success. When you ask me as your coach to tell you what I think you should do, what I hear is that there's something stopping you from being able to trust your own judgment. And my job is to support you in finding out what that is. We are always infinitely more powerful when we trust our own instincts, and the coaching space is sacred for being about you, your agenda, and your opinion. This is life coaching. When people are leaving life coaching feeling pressure to do what the influencer says, inadequate when they can't replicate the same success, not to mention thousands of dollars out of pocket, something is really broken here. And this is the opposite of what life coaching is about. Be cautious when choosing a life coach on social media. Tons of followers does not equal tons of skill and expertise to coach, and neither does charging tons of money. Social media can be an amazing thing, but it's important, as always, to use your critical thinking. Look out for red flags like simple advice giving and exclusive memberships where the main attraction is access to this person that you admire. Keep in mind that what they're showing you is their highly curated highlight reel and not their everyday. Doctrine, isolation, financial exploitation, and control have no place, zero, none in life coaching, and they are critical red flags to look out for. As I said, Jodi Hildebrandt's case is extreme, but life coach and the term coach in general is frequently used in cult-like dynamics, and it is so important to use your critical thinking and have your wits about you. I'll probably do a deep dive into cults that use the word coach, so do let me know if there are any specific ones you'd like to talk about. And finally, authority, authority, authority. You know, authority takes many shapes, not only someone enforcing rigid belief systems. It can also look like someone you admire and look up to, using that influence for their own personal gain. The coach is never the authority, you are. A life coach should be there to empower you to forge your own path and reach your potential, not exploit your vulnerabilities. And with that, that is all from me for today. I hope this resonated and I really hope it was helpful. If you have any thoughts on this video, please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this kind of thing and you'd like to see more videos like this, please consider liking and subscribing, and don't forget to click the notification bell so that you never miss an upload from me. If you're here, you're in a safe space, please know that I believe in you and I believe in your infinite potential to go out into the world and shine. Until next time.